TeamLease has come out with its Employment Outlook Report for April to September period, and they are saying that job market is going to see a lot of activity in this period. That's between April to September. To discuss the details with us, we are now joined by Kunal Sen, Senior Vice President at TeamLease Services. Kunal, thank you very much for joining us here on NDTV Profit. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today. So you're giving us a good news in terms of activity that's going to take place, pick up in the job market. Can you tell us which are the key sectors where you're likely to see maximum activity between April to September?
Thank you and good morning to the viewers. I'll give a brief synopsis of the survey that we have conducted to come out with the TeamLease Employment Outlook Report. So basically this is a forward-looking tool which is to help talent decision makers, and this is a forecast of the inclination to hire by corporate India over the next 6 months. So that's the way we track employment in the country, and we publish this report every 6 months. The definition of net employment index, which is the index that we publish, is basically how many corporates have a positive inclination to hire minus the corporates which do not expect to hire, divided by the total number of respondents. And I'm very glad to report that for the period April to September 2016, we are looking at an increase of 4% in the index, which now stands at 93%, which is the highest ever in the last 3 years. We've been doing this survey for the last 8 years. We've been reporting this index for the last 3 years, and this is the highest ever index for the last 3 years. The good news is that this is fairly secular. 6 out of the 8 top cities and 6 out of the top 9 sectors are reporting an improvement in the index. And obviously this is led by an improvement in the employment index for information technology as the #1 sector, e-commerce and startups, which is seeing almost about 23% growth in jobs. So clearly this is led by I think the consumer sentiment and consumer disposable income, because we find that all the consumer-led industries like telecom, e-commerce, retail, FMCG, these are all reporting an improvement in the hiring sentiment. The only tinge of negative hiring comes from the manufacturing, engineering and infrastructure sector, which is probably the Make in India initiative launched last year had taken the index up. There was a lot of positive hiring sentiment which seems to have slowed down in the going forward next 6 months.
That's an interesting point that you're making, that, you've seen that Make in India seems to be losing its sheen. I mean, why do you say that? Is that because of the slowdown in the manufacturing sector? But, the kind of data that we have got, if you talk about the core sector data or the IIP, of course, that's due today, we are expecting manufacturing activity to pick up pace. So what makes you say that there is some sort of a slowdown which is likely in the manufacturing space?
Normally what we find is that the hiring sentiment typically lags the business sentiment. And typically I think when the initiative, Make in India initiative was launched last year, we found that there was a lot of euphoria and optimism, and the hiring sentiment went up. The business did not really catch up or keep pace, and now that that seems to have got corrected, and they're waiting for now the business outlook to improve before the hiring outlook also improves. So this is, I would say, a short-term correction which has happened, and something that I think will get corrected as we go forward.
So here you're talking about the manufacturing sector. So what's the outlook there? What is it that you have seen in terms of jobs in the manufacturing space? I mean, how soon are they likely to see some sort of a pickup?
Right now the index is down, as I mentioned, the manufacturing engineering as a sector, which actually consists of about 8 subsectors, which includes oil, gas, manufacturing, gems and jewellery, various subsectors. So when you aggregate all of this, there is a slowdown in the hiring index. But I think, as I said, as the business outlook improves, normally hiring outlook catches up very quickly. So I think it's a matter of probably the next 6 months, the projection is slowing down in hiring, but I think in the second half of the year we should see a revival there.
Right. You've said that, e-commerce space and tech startups, these of course are going to be the big things going forward. But we've also seen some devaluation coming into this particular sector and, across the globe, of course, some job cuts that have also taken place. What gives you the confidence to say that in India, the performance will continue in the north direction?
I think the startup story and the e-commerce story continues to be fairly strong. I think we have seen aberrations where companies have gone and overhired and are now trying to correct that situation. But I think given the number of startups which are entering the sector, I think the overall story remains fairly robust and strong. There is going to be a huge amount of hiring happening with blue-collar jobs, which is typically the delivery persons and the drivers. That's where you see a huge supply-demand gap today. There is a huge talent crunch, and there's a scramble to be able to pick up delivery persons and drivers. So that's really good, because it also means that the salaries have shot up. I think we did a comparison versus last year and this year. They've almost shot up by 3 times what an average delivery person makes today. So that's really something which will help a lot of the e-commerce companies going forward.
And if you talk about different levels in a particular company, then where do you see maximum hiring really taking place, in these 6 months?
Our survey is saying the entry-level hiring is what is the strongest, followed by the junior level and the mid-level hiring. But it's clearly good news for a lot of students coming out of college today that there is a lot of hiring happening at the entry level.
Right. And in terms of geographies, which are the key sectors, as in the tier 1, tier 2 cities, the metros, which are those areas which are looking good?
This continues to be driven by the tier 1, tier 2 cities. That's really not changed much. And as I said, among the cities, out of the top 8 cities, 6 of the cities are reporting an improvement in the index, the only exceptions being Kolkata and Ahmedabad. So in that sense, the growth is all around.
All right, Mr. Kunal Sen there. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us here on NDTV Profit and sharing with us the details of this employment outlook report that you have come out with, which says that e-commerce space and the tech startups, these are going to be the 2 key focus areas between April to September, where we are likely to see maximum hiring really taking place, especially at the entry level. But Make in India seems to be losing sheen, at least for the moment. With this, we'll slip into another quick break. Don't go anywhere.